So in this tutorial, we are going to georeference a historic map that does have some kind of geographic information on it. That is, it's got latitude and longitude markings, it's got some grid lines drawn on it. If you have a historic map and it has none of this kind of information on it, you just literally have an old map, then check out this video I made on how to georeference that kind of image. So this is the image that we're going to be using for the tutorial. It's a historic map from 1983 of an area of Papua New Guinea. So what we have actually when we look at the edge of the map are two different types of coordinates. You can see there is on the bottom left-hand corner here, this reads 8 degrees, 0 minutes, and this reads 144 degrees, 0 minutes. It's very faint, but that's what it says. There's also a secondary grid here with a very different kind of coordinate. This one, I think, says 150,000 meters east. This one says 200,000 meters north. So these are the easting and the northing lines, and that will make sense if we were using the Australian map grid, specifically zone number 55. But we don't want to use that map grid today. Instead, we're going to stick with the primary grid coordinates, which are the ones in degrees and minutes, because that's going to be really nice and easy for us to set up in QGIS. So in QGIS, the first thing I'm going to do is start a new project. And then I'm going to give myself a base map. In this case, it's going to be the OpenStreetMap. So to give myself the OpenStreetMap, I'm going to go Add Layer, Add XYZ Layer, and find OpenStreetMap in my XYZ connections. Press Add, press Close, there it is. The second thing I'm going to do is make sure that we are in a map projection system that is going to help us work with our georeferencing. I'm going to change the map projection system to WGS 84, specifically EPSG 4326. And the reason I'm doing that is because the map units will be in degrees and minutes. So if you see down here, the map units are now reading in degrees and minutes. The next thing I'm going to do is give myself a reference grid. This is also going to help me work out how accurately the georeferenced image has been brought in. So to do that, I'm going to go to View, Decorations, Grid. I'm going to press Enable Grid, and I'm going to set the interval of these grid lines to 1. So 1 would be one map unit, and in this case, the units of my map are degrees. So there's going to be a map grid line drawn at every 1 degree east and every 1 degree north. I'm also going to adjust the appearance of these lines so they're not so heavy. I'm going to make this a kind of a much lighter gray. Press OK, press Apply. And now we have a grid of 1 by 1 degree lines. As I said, our map is located in Papua New Guinea. So let's zoom into Papua New Guinea. And I know already roughly where the map should be. It's on here on the south coast of Papua New Guinea. So now that I've set up my project, I can go ahead and open up the Georeferencer tool. To do that, I go to Layer, Georeferencer, and then I hit this button, Open Raster, to find my image. I'm going to go ahead and make this full screen. Now, all I need to do is click on different points of the map and tell the program what those coordinates are in the units of the project. So let's zoom in onto the bottom left-hand corner. Here we can say it says 8 degrees. This would be south of the equator by 144 degrees, which would be east of the Greenwich Meridian. So I get my cursor here. I select this intersection of the two lines, press once, and I'm prompted to enter the map coordinates. So I know that in the X dimension, it's 144 degrees. That's how far east it is. However, we have an issue once we get to the y dimension. The problem is the 8 degrees in this map, because it's been drawn in the southern hemisphere, will actually refer to 8 degrees south. If we put in 8 degrees as it is, our program is going to read that as 8 degrees north. That's a full 16 degrees away from where it needs to be. So in order to account for this, we simply need to go minus 8. Minus 8 degrees north is basically 8 degrees south. And I'm going to press OK. And we have our first coordinate locked in down here. I'm going to go up to the top of the map where it says 144 degrees east, 7 degrees south. And I'm going to select the intersection, click once, 144 minus 7. Press OK. I'm going to scan along here. I'm using the middle mouse button to press down and scan and hold. And here we find 145 degrees east. Of course, this is still 7 degrees south. So I can select this intersection here, press once, 145 minus 7, press OK. And I can scan along to the very end here where it says 145 degrees and 30 minutes east. So I'm going to press once here and I'm going to type 145.5. So we are converting the 30 minutes, which is half a degree, into 0.5, which is the decimal equivalent. And of course, we're going to say minus 7 degrees north. Press OK. Scan down here. Once again, 145.5 degrees east and minus 8 degrees north. And once again, 145 degrees east, minus 8 degrees north. So now I have 6 points which locate this map in the world. The last thing I need to do is make sure that the georeferencing settings are as I would like them to be. So to change your settings, you go to this yellow cog button here, press it, and you can choose the transformation type. Linear just means that it will scale the map as best it can based on your points. Helmet means that it will scale and rotate the map, but otherwise keep the dimensions of it relatively intact. And then all of these other ones add more and more different types of distortion. For our purposes, I think we can go with polynomial 1, because I'm anticipating this being an old map that's probably been photographed, was originally printed on paper, maybe there's some kind of distortion. We want to allow a little bit of play, a little bit of extra manipulation by the program in order for it to conform better to our updated project. I'm going to set 0 for transparency when needed, because our map might shift, it might rotate, and in those spaces where it rotates within the original bounding box of the image, the program needs to know what to do with those extra pixels, whether they should be transparent or whether they should be black. And we want them to be transparent because it will just look better when it's sitting on top of a base map. I'll leave everything else as it is. Load into project when done. That's good. Press OK. And now we can just press the play button. So now we can minimize our georeferencer tool and we can have a look at how it's looking inside of our project. So you can see that it's quite nicely aligning now with the grid lines that we know represent 1 degree north and south each. So if I just hover my mouse over here, you can see down in the coordinate readout that yes, indeed, we are sitting at about minus 8 degrees by 144 degrees. Finally, the other thing I can do just to help me understand exactly what the differences are between the layers, I can change the transparency of this layer a little bit. So I can just double click on this layer and make sure I'm in the transparency tab, and I can just bring down the global transparency of this layer, press apply, press OK. And now if I zoom in, I will see my georeferenced layer on top of the base map from OpenStreetMap. And you can kind of see to what extent the map is lining up. And you can see that the shoreline perfectly continues from OpenStreetMap through to our 1983 map. Of course, there are many divergences and differences in this map with regards to the shoreline, because this is a river delta. So actually, we should expect many changes in the shoreline as different sandbanks appear and disappear. But roughly, it's looking pretty good. And in fact, the grid lines ought to be much more lined up. And indeed, they do appear to be. I mean, there is some minor divergence here, but if we really wanted to, we could finesse that. The overall methodology remains the same. And there you have it. That's how you georeference an image that has some geographic markings on it, but which is not otherwise itself georeferenced.